So today we're going to look at the Great Oak. So 12 provision Scoia'tael unit, has 9 power. It's a treant with the ability to deploy, damage an enemy unit by the number of cards to the left of Great Oak, and boost self by the number of cards to the right of Great Oak. So, just looking at him from the perspective of a value card, he has 12 provisions and 9 power. That is very high base power for a card. And his upside potential is a maximum of 17 value if there's 8 other units on his row. 17 for 12 is good, definitely. And one of the reasons I like him so much, and I think he fits so well in a lot of decks, is the flexibility on his deploy. If there's an enemy card you need to kill, and you have units, you can usually kill it. It's a lot like Yavin, right? When you're playing an Elf Swarm deck and you've got Yavin out, there's a card you need to kill. Usually you have enough Elves to kill it by playing Yavin in that row. Great Oak can usually kill stuff once you get a little bit into a round, and if they play a problematic card, even if it's something like 6 power, like a Damien, usually you can kill it if you've got a lot of rows set up. And if you don't want to kill something, you can just damage a regular old unit, like say they have a Nilfgaard Knight or something, just hit it with damage, or you can boost the Great Oak if they don't have something for you to hit. So that flexibility is really nice, and the upside potential of 17 is good. So where do we play Great Oak, and what kind of decks can run them? So there's a couple of things that come to mind. First of all, it's any deck that makes tokens. So you're going to be playing Scoia'tael decks obviously here. So Dwarves make a lot of tokens. The only issue with playing Grey Oak and Dwarves is Dwarves had a lot of self synergy, and there's some very expensive cards, right? You've got Zoltan Warrior, Monroe, Brewer if you're playing pure Dwarves and not one of the hand buff Renfrey decks. So those are all expensive, so it's kind of hard to fit Great Oak in, and the Dwarves have enough synergy on their own that you don't need a mid-range card like Great Oak in those decks usually. Instead, you probably run an Erendite in those if you do want that type of card anyway. So the other deck that comes to mind, well, several, are Elves. So Elves swarm as well. Usually make a bunch of tokens, but again, they have some good upper version cards of their own. They've got Feign Death, they've got Vernostiel, they're playing Traps, they've got Eldane, and they have a lot of cards as well they can run their decks, and usually don't want to have space for Great Oak. Some other options here are Harmony decks are good with Great Oak. Great Oak is a treant, and if you look at the treants, we'll come to a card this applies to a lot in a bit. There's not that many, right? You've got Oak Critters, which requires Devotion for it to be any good. You've got Treant Boar, which is a fine engine card if you have Dryads out, but it's not the best. And then you've got the Weeping Willow, which is really good if you've got the other poison cards. Problem is the other poison cards usually just don't make the cut. Like Dryad Ranger, as much as I want it to be good, it doesn't really do very well nowadays. So without that Weeping Willow, you don't really see play, which leaves the choices of Forest Protector and the Great Oak for treants. Now, if you're going to play a deck with special cards, you could run Forest Protector. Maybe you could replay these Nature's Rebukes. But if you're running a Renfrey deck, and to mention this because everyone's running Renfrey decks, Great Oak becomes the best choice for a treant to fit into your deck. And he fits extremely well in a deck I'll talk about in a minute, but his mid-range value is really good, and again, in stuff like Renfrey, damage cards are hard to come by, so Great Oak comes even better. So that's really where he's good, is in something we're playing either a lot of tokens, not many special cards, which is kind of, we'll talk about Symbiosis in a minute, but yeah, he fits a lot better in decks that spawn tokens, and better than decks that actually want removal from him instead of having just like a Nature's Rebuke in it. And I said we talked about Symbiosis, so where is Nature's Gift? So Nature's Gift here has Symbiosis on a baseline, which is usually the one you're going to go with. The Symbiosis spawns those treants, right? And you're spawning a whole bunch of little treants, and then with all those tokens, fittingly treant tokens, you can play Great Oak, do a bunch of damage. Again, though, that deck doesn't always want to run him because it has special cards in it. I'd much rather run Force Protector, much rather run Simloss, and you can fit it in, but it's not like a required card, which is kind of a Great Oak's issue used to be. But now with Renfrey decks needing damage and control, he fits very, very well in those. So, which deck in particular here, and what card do we really want him to go in? And it's going to be Saskia Commander. So, the reason he goes so well as Saskia Commander If she has immunity, dragon, you all know this. If you have at least 10 different primary categories in your starting deck, summon a random bronze squid-tail unit. So, with the primary category, it's not in your field. Yeah, we all know this. You need 10 categories in your deck. Great Oak's a tree ant. You can fit him in the deck with Sasuke Commander. It gives you that tree ant category. Sasuke Commander summons a bunch of dudes to your row. That sets up the Great Oak. And then you can use Great Oak to finish up that round 1 where you play Sasuke Commander. Because usually you're doing that Sasuke Commander, and then you really want to win that round, and they might pressure you. If they do, you can finish your round with Great Oak and deal with any of their problematic engines, which is really good. They fit very well together. And a deck that they do fit well together in this one right here. This is a Harmony deck with Guerrilla Tactics and Run Free because, well, if you want to win with Harmony, guys, this is the deck. I might make a video on it at some point, but this is the strongest Squirtle deck I've played this season. But you run the Great Oak in here as a tree ant for one of the categories, which is really good. And then it helps with Sasuke Commander, and then you can do a bunch of damage and finish stuff off. So that's really a really good deck for Great Oak, and I'm glad he's seeing play in it. Now, I think there's not too much else I want to say about him other than I really like this card, and he fits well in certain decks. The only thing to mention here is he has been buffed and nerfed in the past, right? So he was originally 7 power, I believe, or 8, and then got nerfed to 7. No, 7. And then he was 13 provisions. He's always had the same ability. They just changed around the powered provisions when they thought he was too strong. Then he got buffed, and now he's up to 9 and 12. As opposed to the original values he had. It's really good. I really like Great Oak. The only things I'd say about it, by the way, if you want to know just how much I like Great Oak, I've made my own artwork to finish up this picture of the non-premium version. I painted it up in GIMP to make for the end screen. So he's the end screen of all the videos, just give you an idea of how much we like him. But yeah, so I really like Great Oak, and I think he has actually a really good place right now in these Run-Free decks for Squirtle. That being said, I don't like Run-Free, so whatever, but you know, he fits well in there, which is really good because he wasn't seeing play for the longest time just because, like I said, a bunch of decks he does fit well in. He wasn't required for those decks, right? You had other options for removal. You could put in Forest Protector and Nature's Rebuke and have that consistent removal instead of running Great Oak, but I think now he does very well, and I'm glad to see that. There's actually nothing I'd change about Great Oak. I think he's really good just how he is. He fits a niche. He fits well with decks that spawn a bunch of tokens. He fits well in the longer round. He's really good. And then we'll talk about what's his weakness then. So we always want to talk about the negatives of cards as well. Don't just want to say how much I like him. His weaknesses are short rounds, right? So if you go to a short round and you don't have any units, he plays for 9. But then again, that's not the worst thing ever. If you look at some of the other cards that are high provisions that are played in like a round where they don't want to be played, they're not always having that much value, right? If we just take a look, what's a card up here? Drog just plays for 7 if you've got nothing else with him. Like Hemdall's is similar, he plays for 8, Warelf will play for 8. He's not super high value compared to other stuff, but like look, a lot of these guys are like 7s. So if you play him without his ability doing anything, Great Oak is still pretty good. 9's not terrible. It's obviously not what you want to do with him, but if you do end up in a late round 3 where you've got a short round, having Great Oak as one of the cards in your hand isn't bad, because if you just have 2 other units, he's probably playing for 11, and that's not terrible for a card that's in the position, like in a round where they're not really wanting to be played. So that's the one thing, like short rounds, not his best. The other thing is, if you are relying on him to damage stuff for control, you can run into a bit of an issue if people play engines early in the round, because you won't have units set up to do damage yet. So say they just open with Messenger from the Sea, for example, and you want to kill it, you're not going to be able to because you don't have any units out yet. So, well, usually you'll usually have 2 units out when they play Messenger from the Sea in the rain, but you know what I'm saying, right? Like, you'd only do 2 or 3 damage then. It wouldn't be enough to kill the unit. So that is a bit of weakness with Great Oak. However, his upsides I think outweigh it, and overall, just a solid card that can fit into a lot of decks that only lately has been put into like a popular deck in that Guerrilla Tactics Harmony one. But overall, I really like Great Oak. I think he's good. I wouldn't actually change anything about him. I think he's fine just how he is. And thanks for suggesting this card. I really do like talking about Great Oak. And I'll throw up the end screen picture here just because, yeah, we'll throw up the end screen picture here. It is very fitting for Great Oak here. But thanks for watching, guys, and hopefully you enjoyed. Let me know more cards you want to see. Did I forget something about Great Oak? I usually forget something about these cards. You guys always point them out. And we'll see you next time.